Gigi Berardi reading FoodWISE tonight, and this section is entitled, Is Going Back to Organic Farming an Answer? And this is in part one, our shared world of food and farming. So the example I use here is of organic agriculture and issues surrounding certification, which I discuss later in the book. Agricultural labor is what I'm going to end with, though, because it is most pressing. Is going back to organic farming an answer? Since a lot of the difficulties in achieving food sustainability result from depletion of natural resources and damaging impacts on the environment from a more industrialized agriculture, organic farming has often been assumed to be a big part of the solution. Organic farming, after all, centers on using natural processes for fertilizing and maintaining the structure of soil and avoiding use of unnatural substances like synthetic pesticides. The demand from consumers for chemical-free food has boomed in recent decades. Organic farming has grown and evolved in response, but still has a ways to go. By 2016, the total acreage of certified organic farms in the United States had increased to 5 million acres. As big as that number sounds, it's only about 1% of all arable, that's farmable, land. U.S. farms and ranches account for $7.6 billion in certified organic commodities. Think poultry, milk, and eggs, but also lettuce, tomatoes, and corn. Apparently, almost 40% of U.S. adults say that most or some of what they eat was organic. But let's look more closely at the assumptions consumers have about the sustainability of organic farming. It may in fact be part of the solution, but the situation is more complicated than it seems at first glance. We define organic in large part by what it is not. Organic farming, by and large, does not use synthetic chemical insecticides, herbicides, or other pesticides. It does not involve the use of irradiation. This relates particularly to organic food processing or genetic engineering. The purpose of all this, in the words of the USDA, is to integrate cultural, biological, and mechanical practices that foster cycling of resources, promote ecological balance, and conserve biodiversity. Any farmer can follow these practices, but to legally sell food products in the United States that are labeled organic, a farmer must pay to have his or her operation formally certified by an official body such as the USDA or state departments of agriculture or nonprofit organizations such as California Certified Organic Farmers. The requirements for certification typically include that at least 95% of the food product be produced organically, as described earlier, which of course means up to 5% may not. The upshot is that there's a difference between farming organically and being formally certified by the USDA as organic. Some commercial farmers who think it's not worth the trouble and expense don't bother with certification, but still use organic practices. That's why all sorts of similar sounding descriptions appear on food labels, particularly in small markets. Grown naturally, raised without antibiotics or hormones, pesticide-free. In fact, a handful of independent certifying programs aim to provide simpler and cheaper certification for essentially organic production. See, for example, Certified Naturally Grown's program at www.cngfarming.org. Just because a food for sale doesn't have USDA organic certification doesn't mean it hasn't been produced using standard organic practices. So this is a theme in the book, and that is to look at rules and how it is that growers as well as consumers are approaching rules and begging for flexibility, at the same time begging for meaning in those rules, for example, around organic or around fair trade. What's looming large in the state of Washington right now is rules surrounding farm labor housing and around two farm worker organizations that have filed a lawsuit in Skagit County, and concerns, the crux of the suit has to do with concerns around COVID, although that is contested mightily. So what I've done is I've included two articles for you, one of which talks about the lawsuit, and then the other that looks at also implications of the lawsuit. If there are rules regarding social spacing and other precautions for protection against COVID, these don't come without a cost, and the state needs to pony up to make sure that farmers can provide housing and equipment to keep our farm workers safe.